What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Blazers Uprise Postgame Show. The Blazers get a win today. They got a win in the win column, but it wasn't satisfying whatsoever for me. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that's why the caption in the thumbnail said an unsatisfying win, but a win nonetheless, because the Blazers struggled to take care of a Minnesota Timberwolves team that is also missing their second and third best players in D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley. The Blazers' defense is still struggling mightily to take care of business. You had a lot of talk over the All-Star break from Terry Stotts, from Robert Covington, about how they thought they could be a top 10 defense when CJ McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic comes back. I don't know how CJ McCollum helps with that. Nurkic should help a bit, but you have a lot of talk from this team about, okay, we're finally going to be a good defense. We're finally going to, we're paying more attention to the three-point line and feel like we're making progress. And they come out of the All-Star break giving up 127 to the Phoenix Suns and 121 to the Minnesota Timberwolves. So that is going to be a theme of this post-game show. We're going to talk about the defense. Offensively, the Blazers took care of business against what is a porous defensive team in their own right in the Minnesota Timberwolves, but they're the worst team in the league. They're not a team with playoff aspirations. And the Portland Trail Blazers are a team that is hoping to make a run in the playoffs, so we're going to view things from that lens. As always, what's going on? Hoping you guys are having a good day. I was going to say whatever day it is, but I'm completely blanking. It's Saturday. Hopefully you guys are having a good weekend so far. This was a game that the Blazers took care of, thank goodness, but they have another matchup against this team tomorrow, and I'm hoping that tomorrow can go a lot smoother than tonight went. Eric, what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, Ryan Cobley summed it up perfectly in the chat. He says, good thing we started hitting threes in the fourth, because we weren't hitting shots. And not only, it wasn't just hitting shots, it was our offense in the third quarter. There was only like two shots, maybe three that entire quarter that I could say, well, okay, that was a decent shot. Every other one was contested. Even some of the ones we made were like, fade away, long 2-pointers with the shot clock winding down with nobody moving and no passing. There was a possession where Trent just dribbled down. He hit one of his few shots of the game. It was like a 17-foot jumper, but he just dribbled the ball down, didn't pass once, just dribbled for like 10 seconds, and then took a contested, spot-up jumper. It's just, I don't understand, because we saw the first quarter how beautiful it was when the Blazers shared the ball. Dame has 7 assists. The rest of the team was passing the ball well, also. And then, I just don't get the possessions where we have one person with the ball and the other 4 just standing in cement, not moving at all. It's comical to me that someone can watch this team and be like, oh, that's a great offense. It's not. We just have guys tonight. Melo makes a bunch of tough shots, saved our butts tonight. Dame ends up hitting a few threes in the fourth quarter, and we win the game. But it shouldn't take Melo making all those. He took one with like a guy in his face. He thought he got fouled off 1 foot, like a 3-pointer. The shot before that was like a long 2 in the corner. And these just are not good shots. And it's further magnified by the play I posted on Twitter. And I'm going to refer to that play a lot. But this team is more than capable of running good sets and creating good offense for these guys to get easier shots. It doesn't have to be just because Melo needs his shots. He doesn't have to shoot those kind of shots. We can get him better shots within the offense. And he's a good passer, as he showed several times tonight that he can make a pass. And I just wish this team would take advantage of that stuff.
Yeah, Melo finished with 5 assists tonight to go along with his 24 points on 7 for 12 from the field. His last play I posted on Twitter, quick extra pass for Derrick Jones Jr. dunk there in the final closing minutes of the game. Offensively, this is just the type of style that can work against a Minnesota Timberwolves team, and we put 125 on the board. But against a good defense, it'll struggle, and that's been kind of our what we've said all season long. Thank goodness Melo hit some tough shots, or else we could be recapping a loss to the worst team in the league. And it's not like they don't have their injury issues too. They're missing D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley, their second and third best players as well. So no excuses could have flown for losing this game. The fact that it was as close as it was disappointing, especially after the Blazers had a 13-point lead. But as we told the Valley podcast when we had those Suns guys on, we were what were we telling them, Eric? This is what that team does. This is what the Blazers do. They blow 10-point leads. They blow double-digit leads. No matter who they're playing against. It could be the Suns, especially if it's a good team, but it can be against bad teams as well. We've seen them lose a game in which they were leading the Bulls by 20. We saw them lead by 13 tonight, and then they ended up trailing going into the fourth quarter. It's just, I don't know. You'll see flashes of how this team should play. It's just frustrating that it's not more consistent right now, which is basically where I'm at. The defense has to improve, though. The second and third quarters, they gave up 33 and 37 points to the Timberwolves, respectively. 70 points in 2 quarters against the Timberwolves, Eric, when they were missing D'Angelo Russell and Malik Beasley. It's just inexcusable. You let Jalen Noel go off the bench for 17. You let Anthony Edwards have an efficient night, which is very rare for him. Karl-Anthony Towns, the one guy you really got to stop. You let him go off for 34 points in 34 minutes. Juan Hernan Gomez shoots 50%, scores double figures off the bench. Naz Reid in 14 minutes has 11 points. It's just... You let him shoot 37.5% from 3. I guess it's not that bad, but this wasn't a good shooting lineup they had out there. Vanderbilt can't shoot. Layman has been struggling to shoot. Edwards is 30% on the season. Ricky Rubio isn't a decent 3-point shooter. He's below average. I mean, Josh Okogie doesn't really shoot. It's not a good 3-point shooting team. They're still able to shoot almost 38% against us, because they were getting quality looks almost all night long. So against a better team, this is definitely a loss, and it's just frustrating. You'll see flashes, and you'll see a game here or there where it's more consistent, and it gets some people a little bit more optimistic. But it doesn't seem like they can sustain that consistent level of improvement that they need to. And a lot of people think having CJ and Nurkic back will fix that. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I don't think it will, but I'd be glad to be wrong. It's just something that this team has to try and make consistent progress towards their issues. And I can't sit here after watching this game and after watching the last game. I can't sit here and say that I think they've made substantial, consistent progress on a number of the issues we've seen since the start of the season.
Yeah, real quick before I get to my defensive point, I just want to say, so the thing with CJ and Nurk is it's not like they're going to come in and we're going to magically fix all the problems. The difference those two make is it makes our margin for error a little greater because those players, like you saw Melo tonight, CJ can get hot and dominate a game. Nurk can do it through either defense sometimes, passing sometimes, occasionally hitting the offensive boards or scoring down low on the pick and roll. So he can make plays to compensate for some of these weaknesses, but they don't fix any of the problems. They just get bailed out by these players who can make incredible individual plays.
Yeah.
But as for the defense, so we had fallen back to 29th before this game. Probably stay there, or I haven't looked at what 30th is. But let me ask you a question. Should the Timberwolves have a better defense than Portland?
Do they have a better defense than Portland? Because they definitely shouldn't. They definitely shouldn't. I mean, you look at the personnel, man. I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns. Here's always been my way of looking at defensive personnel is you can get away with having a bad defender at point guard much more than you can get away with having a bad defender at center, right? As you go from point guard to center, defense matters more, so to say, because that's your last line of defense, your rim protector. A rim protector can help make up for a bad defensive guard. A bad defensive guard a good defensive guard likely isn't going to be able to have the same sort of impact to make up for a poor rim protector. And that's basically how I've looked at it. You look at Karl-Anthony Towns, he's a very, very bad defensive center. Vanderbilt's decent defensively. Edwards still has a lot to learn on that end. He has the potential, but he's not a good defender yet. Layman isn't a good defender. We know that. Ricky Rubio is solid, but I mean, Okogie's okay.
Russell isn't great.
But, like, you look at us with, you got Trent, who hypothetically should be good defender. We know he has the ability to be a good defender. You got Rocco, who's a better defender than anyone on their team by far. You got Derrick Jones Jr., who's a better defender than anyone on their team. I mean, you had Nurkic the first 12 games, much, much, much better rim protector than Karl Anthony Towns is. It's just they should not be better than us defensively. They do not have better defensive personnel. I mean, they normally start D'Angelo Russell instead of Ricky Rubio, which is a big defensive downgrade. Malik Beasley, I don't think is a good defender either. It's they have a terrible defensive roster, much worse than ours, but they're ahead of us defensively, aren't they?
They are 25th, so not as bad as I would think watching this game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the difference, though, they're 25th, right? We're 29th. You think, oh, that's fairly close, right? So per 100 possessions, they give up 3 points less per 100 possessions.
Pretty big difference,
so we're not even
like
really close to being 25th or being out of the bottom.
They're probably
5.
Closer to being an average defense than we are to them.
Yep.
I would think, which is just sad. Shout out Shaggy Squid, $5 Australian dollar donation. He says it was genuinely fun watching Cat and Kanter abuse each other's lack of defense. Melo 100% saved us tonight, and I want to see Simon start over Gary once. I mean, Gary's been in a cold streak. He's been in a slump. We can talk about that in a little bit, but he isn't really helping the team right now. That is one of the bigger differences in how the team is playing. But still, I mean, offensively, you put 125 points on the board. You just got not give up 121 to this Timberwolves team. You got to be better than that. And then shout out Anime Jake, $5 donation. He says, do you think Nurk's early season struggles were mostly mental? Bubble Nurk was putting up monster stats before his grandma died. And I don't know. It's such a small sample size. It's kind of hard to say with him. What do you think?
Sorry, what was the question? I was looking up your.
Do we think Nurk's early season struggles were mostly mental?
I think it was just the fact that he was in Bosnia until 3 days into training camp starting. Didn't really, and then we had that COVID issue when he came back. So I think he was just out of shape. I don't think it was mental. I think he just whether he's out of shape or not, he plays mentally. I feel like the way he normally plays, the only mental thing I would say is that it starts to bug him when he can't do the things he normally can do. And I don't think it was because of anything physically other than being a little out of shape.
Yep. Speaking of Nurkic and CJ, I'm curious to see if they return, not this next game, but the game after, because it sounds like they're both extremely close. We kind of need just something exciting. We come out of the All-Star break and completely botch the fourth against Phoenix and then almost lose to the Timberwolves. It's not too exciting. It's kind of frustrating. Thank goodness we got the win. We moved to 22-15. I mean, you look at that and it's solid record, right? We're up there battling for fifth with Denver right now, but it's almost like seeing the way this team plays and seeing the same issues is kind of has a dulling effect in terms of the excitement for this team. So I'm ready for Nurkic and CJ to come back just to have some excitement. You know what I mean? Just to be excited to see those guys on the floor again. And then to see, if this team can finally improve some things, or then what the excuse becomes then when those guys are healthy, because you won't have an injury excuse then. So ready for those guys to come back for sure.
And what is it with the calf injury?
I don't know.
I mean, I knew he was warming up before this game, but how many people have to have lower body, soft tissue, muscle issues before we start to question what the hell this training staff is doing? I mean, Nurk even had it last year when he was coming back from injury as well. He had the calf strain that kept him out, or kept him from coming back sooner. It's just crazy that so many people, and then the whole Giles thing, who had a calf strain, I guess, and
Yeah.
has been out weeks, and I just don't understand what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, the medical staff, you have to take a hard look in the medical staff and see if there's something somewhere where they're failing, because this is almost getting ridiculous, man. I mean, maybe it's just we have injury-prone players. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just you definitely have to evaluate the medical staff to see if there is something somewhere where they are going wrong.
And it was good after seeing that news yesterday, seeing him out before the game. The fact that he went on the trip, even if he had a calf strain, leads me to believe that that it's not going to like prevent him from coming back next week. And then also just seeing him out there shooting and running around and stuff and same with Giles, they both look fine warming up before the game. So hopefully it was just a precaution, and they were just being like super overcautious with these guys.
Yeah, that's the hope. Shout out to Sean Paul, $5 donor. He says, OKC and Houston both in rebuild mode after they act like Melo is the problem. Does that say more about Melo or those teams? Melo has nothing to do with whether or not those teams are in rebuild mode. Like, not having... You look at Houston, they got rid of Melo, had a decent season. You know, that year... Was that the year they made the Western Conference Finals? Or was that the year before?
Houston?
Yeah.
That was the year we made the Western Conference Finals, so they lost in the second round to the Warriors.
Yeah, it was like the year before they made the Western Conference Finals without Melo. Then they have Melo for 10 games, then get rid of him. That has nothing to do with them being in rebuild mode now. They're in rebuild mode now because Harden didn't want to stay. OKC being in rebuild mode has nothing to do with Melo.
Let me just say this, though, with Houston. So Melo's only there 11 games, and everyone's like, oh, he didn't accept his bench role or whatever. He started the year coming off the bench. Harden gets hurt. They start him for 2 games, and then he goes back to the bench. And then they make him the problem. He was playing like the same way he's playing for Portland now. He had a couple of good games, a couple of clunkers mixed in, and they got off to a really slow really slow start that year, based on mostly because Harden was hurt, and they were coming off the Western Conference Finals, so they expected like this huge year where they would contend for a title, and Melo took the blame for that, even though that wasn't his fault at all, and I will go to my grave believing that. And then
he was not playing good in Houston, though.
It was only 11 games, though, and it's this year we saw some good games and some bad games. Like, that's just who Melo is. It's not.
Honestly,
it wasn't his fault.
He was worse in OKC. He's bounced back. I think he's better now than he was in OKC. He's more efficient. He accepts his bench role, which is a better role for him. He's been decent defensively lately. I've been happier with the way he's been playing defense the past month or so than I was earlier in the season. Earlier in the season, it was awful. Now, he's still not a good defender by any means. He's still a below average defender, but he's not making a bunch of silly mistakes right now. And you see some hustle plays. He got a tip pass on a good rotation to the corner at one point in this game, which you would not have seen him do earlier in the season. So you look at that, and then you look at some of the passes he made tonight, and you could say maybe he forced a couple shots, but with the way our offense was going, he had to, and he made a lot of them. You know what I mean? So that's what you want. So overall, it's like Melo is playing better, I think, this past month than he ever played in OKC or Houston. It just took him accepting that bench role, and just giving more effort defensively, I feel like, and he's slimmer now than he was back then, which makes it easier for him to get to the spots he needs to be quicker. So that's my thoughts on him.
Let me just say this real quick about the OKC thing. So OKC, once again, they blamed him for the problem that year he was there, right? And then the next year, they won one more game than the year prior, and they lost in the first round again. It's I just think people blame him too much for being. I mean, he wasn't great there, but I just think those two teams were looking for a scapegoat. OKC trades for Melo and Paul George that summer, and then they lose in the first round. Houston, coming off the Western Conference Finals, gets off to a slow start. It's so easy to just say, oh, it's Melo's fault, and not blame Billy Donovan or Russell Westbrook or someone like that, because Westbrook carried them to the playoffs all by himself, So I just don't think I hate the idea of just purely blaming him for the reason those teams went south those years. But at the same time, I do agree with you that the rebuilds had really nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people don't blame him as much as people don't blame him for Houston struggling in the playoffs that year. I don't think he is definitely kind of got the short end of the stick there first 10 games, but it wasn't like he was playing all that well. He's better. He's played better here than he did in either of those two stops. So that's where I'll leave that. But moving on to continue to cover this game.
What real quick? So Minnesota is 1 point. I just found someone like as close to the middle as I could at just going through the teams. But Detroit's 17th in defensive rating, and they're 1.2 points per 100 possession away from Minnesota at 25. And we're 3 points behind 25th. So
yeah, that's terrible.
So they're closer to the middle.
There's no excuse for that. Yeah, I mean we are twice as far away from Minnesota defensively as they are to average, basically. Yep. It doesn't make sense. Block boy, that's ridiculous. Because Roko's value is not based all on scoring the ball. Roko's a defensive player. But, I mean, you will continue to compare them as if they're both similar defensively. Yeah, I mean, the defense, I don't know, man. Like, what went wrong defensively for them tonight, in your eyes?
Well, we see how many contested shots we take, right? I feel like we give up way too many open shots, and it's hard to pinpoint one thing because it seems like one possession, the rotations are fine, and then the next possession, the rotations are crap, and they give up an open shot. But then on the possession where the rotations were fine, someone falls asleep or gets beat on ball. Because the first or one of the first plays of the game, Dame isn't too bad on ball usually, but Rubio takes him right to the basket and does a Euro step and gets a wide open lay-in on him. It seems like every play. It just seems like one person messes up and it ruins the whole sanctity of the offense or the defense.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, I did not watch this game attentively enough to notice some of the breakdowns. I was kind of watching some college basketball on the side too, so that's why I asked you. I mean, but it's probably just this. I mean, it looked like just the same typical issues to me.
We got beat on the boards again in this game.
That didn't help. Let me see the offense.
I don't know what happened at the end, but I know we were down 27-20 on the rebounds at half.
We gave up 19 offensive boards. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of why it's hard to notice it because we're giving up 121 points in part because we can't get a rebound when we do force a miss. But they still end up shooting 52% from the field. Thank goodness they missed some free throws because they shot 73% from the free throw line, 22 for 30. Thank goodness they didn't shoot 26 for 30. It might have been a loss. But yeah, 19 offensive rebounds. We've struggled to rebound the ball lately, and I don't know what it is. Because Kanter's a really good rebounder. It just seems like oftentimes he doesn't have enough help in there. Gary Trent Jr., honestly, as far as defensive rebounding, I think getting CJ McCollum back will help.
That's crazy.
Just as much with that is getting Yusuf Nurkic back, which is crazy to think about. But you look at Gary Trent Jr. today in his 30 minutes. Do you know how many rebounds he had, Eric? Do you want to guess?
One, maybe.
One rebound in 30 minutes. There was a play where he was complaining about Jared Vanderbilt going over the back early in the game. Do you know which play I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Pissed me off because all he had to do was turn around and box him out and he likely would have gotten the rebound. Instead, he turns and watches the ball go up and he lets Jared Vanderbilt run towards the rim to be in position to get the offensive rebound. And then he wants to complain about over the back. It's just turn around and box him out. It's ridiculous. It's such a fundamental thing. It drives me crazy when people don't do it. It's such a fundamental thing. So for him to complain about Vanderbilt going over the back when it shouldn't have even been a situation like that in the first place, if he simply just turned and put a body on a guy and boxed out, was very frustrating to me. He's averaging 2 rebounds per game, 2.1 rebounds per game in 31 minutes per game. CJ McCollum this year was
like 5 or so, right?
It was averaging 4 rebounds per game in 33.8 minutes per game, so almost twice as much in terms of the boards. The thing is, though, CJ McCollum is willing to turn and box out. You know what I mean? CJ McCollum helps with team rebounding, whereas Gary Trent Jr., unless a ball goes right to him, he's not he's not helping at all, because he doesn't his lack of rebounding goes beyond just him not getting to the rebound. He lets guys get into the paint. He lets guys crash the boards because he doesn't box out. CJ McCollum will box out at times. So it's kind of weird blaming a 2-guard for defensive rebounding issues, but I think this team struggles to rebound with a guy like Gary Trent Jr. on the floor. And it's not just Gary Trent Jr. I just think he's kind of the biggest offender of that. Rodney Hood didn't have a single rebound in 22 minutes played. This team just has to box out. And this team has an issue at times where they just literally don't box out. Multiple guys. And it's extremely frustrating because that's such a controllable thing, an easy thing to do, and a fundamental part of basketball that it shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, and the other thing about the defense is they had 18 turnovers and still scored 120 points. That means pretty much every possession was either they got a good shot, or if they missed the shot, got an offensive rebound, or they turned the ball over.
Yeah.
And you have to find a way to make teams miss shots. And honestly, in the fourth quarter, they missed some open shots too. Otherwise, like you said, they missed free throws as well. This might have been a completely different post-game show.
Yeah, we might have that completely different post-game show tomorrow. It's interesting, playing the same team again. We can look straight to this game on things they need to improve. Honestly, I think Portland has more adjustments or points of emphasis to make than Minnesota does, despite Portland being the winning team on this one, because Portland is far more talented and they won this game off talent. I thought the Timberwolves played about as well as you could expect. They could have played better for sure and taken care of this game. They make more free throws, make a couple of those open shots in the fourth quarter. They probably win this game. Probably could play a little better defense, but you're looking at a Minnesota team that's just worst roster in the league right now. So going into tomorrow, box out. Simple. Box out. Don't give up 19 offensive rebounds, right? It's not like they are, they are a decent offensive rebounding team on paper, I think. Karl-Anthony Towns is a solid rebounder. Jared Vanderbilt got 3 offensive rebounds, but Jake Layman got 3 offensive rebounds tonight. I know he's a hustle guy, but still. Juan Hernangomez had 4 offensive rebounds tonight. He is not that type of offensive rebounder. Jalen Noel had 2 offensive boards tonight. It's across the board for them. It's not like a one guy, a Kanter just feasting, on another center and hustling his way into a bunch of offensive rebounds. It's not like that. It's everybody, which means, I don't know, at least in my eyes, it's an everybody issue. It's a bunch of people not boxing out, which is what I noticed tonight when this team played. We got to box out. It's that simple. We box out tonight, we win this game by 15 points. So that's it. That's key of emphasis going into tomorrow.
Yep, absolutely. Shaggy Squid with another Australian $5 dono. He says Rodney Hood needs to be traded. Honestly, other than 2 good games, he hasn't shown any signs of being a good player. He is just taking Nas's minutes.
Well, you only trade him if you're getting something back. So I hate when people think about we got to trade this player. Okay, I would say we got to see what we can get for this player, but we got to trade this player. You got to get something back. It makes no sense to trade him unless you're getting something back. So saying we need to trade him, what are you getting for him? Because if it's a worthwhile package, yeah, I'm down. But we don't have to trade him for nothing. So yeah, I'm down to shop him and see what we could get back for his contract. I'd probably rather have Nas playing at this point than him. But the whole narrative, we have to trade this guy, without even like thinking about like what we could get back for him. I just don't think like that.
Yeah, we had this conversation last week about would you dump him for nothing, maybe. Yeah, you're kind of of the opinion, I think, that we could just not play him as much, right? Or like cut his minutes. I hope that's the case, that we can do that. I'm kind of worried that we gave him some sort of promise that he would stay in the rotation or something. I don't understand why we would do that. But yeah, I'd hate to think that we'd have to get rid of him just so Stotts wouldn't play him. But we have seen that in the past, whether it be, Ed Davis or Aminu and Harkless last year. Trying to think back, I know there was other players, Seth Curry, I guess, with Ant or whatever. But like, there's been times where we've seen that Stotts isn't going to stop playing those guys, and we have to get rid of them to do it, in order for a guy like Nas to get his opportunity to flourish. I just hope with Hood he's enough of a team player to not be a problem if he doesn't get minutes.
Yeah. He is our most tradable piece, making $10 million. So, I mean, for salary purposes, yeah, it's just like, what are you going to go out there and get? I don't see what we can go out there and get for him necessarily. That's why there hasn't been much trade content. There's not much out there available. So, yeah, I mean, he didn't even, I don't know. He was 2 for 4 tonight. He just doesn't have he's a scorer that doesn't shoot. You know what I mean? And we also don't run plays for him to get him involved. And he can have moments, he had that 21-point game when he started. It's just like off the bench, why don't we have some sets to try and get him going? It's just like he's basically just a non-factor out there. He's a non-factor on the boards tonight. He's not a playmaker. He's not a, good defender. He's okay-ish. He's a scorer, right? And you look at what he did in the Denver series. He scored the ball at a very high clip. He punished teams when they put a small on him when he was playing next to Dame and CJ, and they switched a 3 onto one of those two guards. And they put Jamal Murray on him, tried to hide Jamal Murray on him, and he punished Jamal Murray. When he's scoring the ball, it's like, okay, you know what? He isn't bad he isn't like that bad in any other area, so he's a positive player for you. He's a serviceable enough rebounder. He can make the occasional right pass, doesn't force too much necessarily. Okay defender. So when he's scoring the ball, right, it's like, yeah, he's a solid playmaker, especially off the bench. The problem is there's so many games where he just plays 22, 23 minutes with 3 shots or 4 shots. It's just like, what's the point then in even having him out there if he's barely going to shoot, and that's his one redeeming quality? That's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. The only thing that gives me pause to keeping him, like you said, you got to see what you can get necessarily. But if we do make a move, it's almost 100%. I think that it would be involving Hood, because you can make the case that he's been our worst rotational player this year, and his contract is a decent enough size to bring something back, especially since teams would have the option for next year of cutting him or not. So yeah, I think they will probably look to trade him if they can get something for him, like you said. I wouldn't be opposed to dumping him as long as we got someone like an Ariza or Otto Porter Jr. off the buyout market. But other than that, yeah, I don't think it hurts to keep him on the team and have that depth, because he has flashes where he could be useful at times, especially with our stagnant offense.
Yeah. I mean, I would maybe look into seeing if Will Barton is available. It's kind of tough because that's a divisional rival, but people talk about, you need another playmaker off the bench. Will Barton is like a playmaking wing who can play the 2 or the 3 and play defense and shoot the ball well enough. I mean, and he's been here before, so that may be the type of guy they look for, but the problem is he makes almost $14 million, so you're also going to have to trade out a Zach Collins or an Enes Kanter. And if you trade out I don't know if I don't think I'd want to do Hood and Collins for Will Barton. And I'd be down to do like Kanter and Hood for Will Barton if we had a good backup center replacement that's about Kanter quality. So maybe if LaMarcus Aldridge got bought out, maybe then he would become the backup center. You could sign him off the buyout market and swap a Kanter and a Hood for a Barton. Like I'd be down for that. Bring 2 former Blazers back, and Kanter can become our Steve Blake essentially. But I don't know. It's just that's the salary situation, and we're gonna stay out of the tax. That's another thing to remember. It's just doesn't make things easy necessarily.
Yeah, I don't like Barton's game on this team at all, so I'm completely opposed to bringing him back. But I understand
weird
why.
to me. I don't. Why? Why don't you like Barton's game on this team?
I feel like he's better in a faster pace team. I feel like Stotts just has him ISO too much, and he's better when he's like running around and making plays and stuff. And
yeah, but I'd say I don't think he's a bad like isolation wise against bench units. He can pass the ball and he can get to the rim and he can shoot off the dribble. You know what I mean? So it's like if you like Hood, all Hood does is ISO anyway. So I'd rather have a guy who's more better at creating off the dribble for himself and others. I'd say Rodney Hood this year is not better creating off the dribble for himself offensively than Will Barton has been. But Will Barton's also a much better passer, so you would have, that extra playmaking aspect, and then Barton is a pretty good defender at this point. So, like, I feel like he can play a multitude of roles. So that's like the type of player I would look at. Maybe a playmaking 3 that can defend and hit threes, I think would be a great pickup for the bench lineup. Stotts might not use him all that well, and his production might be a little bit worse than it was in Denver because of that, because Denver is probably a better system for him. But like that type of player is the type I would look at for Hood.
To me, Barton, he puts up decent stats, but he's always a guy who kind of just does his own thing.
That's our entire offense anyway.
That is our
That's
offense.
Hood right now anyway.
Yeah, but like I don't want it to be that way, so yeah.
Yeah, I just that's the thing. It's like I don't know. The system fit is secondary to just getting a guy that can playmake a little bit. Honestly, just so people don't have the excuse that we don't have enough playmakers, but that'll always be a thing. But yeah, so Kanter had a huge game tonight. He was he scored 20 points, 11 rebounds. He and Karl-Anthony Towns kind of did feast on each other. He only had 2 offensive rebounds, so a lot of his offensive work was coming off the pick and roll, finishing around the rim. Shot 8 for 12 today, 4 for 5. I'm not going to make player graphics. We're just kind of going through it now. I'll probably do it tomorrow if we win. But Kanter had a huge game, stepped up for us. Defensively didn't do much to contain Karl-Anthony Towns, but if you got a guy like Kanter who's struggling defensively, you need him to make up for it in other areas. I feel like he did that by putting 20 on the board.
Yeah, especially in the first quarter of this game, he was fantastic, finishing all those plays inside. Couple, he had 3 misses at one point, and 2 of them were on the same play in the second half. Where that was one of his offensive rebounds too, where he got blocked and then tried to take another bad shot and got blocked again. He's not always good when he's trying to be athletic and get a shot over a shot blocker, but just really solid overall game from him again.
Yep, agreed with that. Dame, 7 for 17. Kind of quiet, but had 7 assists in the first quarter, finished with 10, had 24 points, 10 assists, 4 boards. Only 2 turnovers on those 10 assists. I don't know. He just seemed like content to just, kind of sit back and watch at times offensively more than usual, Didn't seem to try and take over the game like I expected him to, especially against the Minnesota Timberwolves defense that had very little success with trapping him. I don't know. I'm a little surprised at how passive he was at stretches during this game, but overall it wasn't a bad game from Dame. He was 3 for 9 from the 3-point line. He was 4 for 8 inside the arc. So efficiency-wise, is kind of below what Dame normally provides, but overall it was an okay-ish game. There are times where it's just like, Dame, just take this game over. Luckily, he didn't need to. Melo did instead, but I was a little surprised at how passive he was tonight.
Yes, I think he had 6 shots in the first half. He was doing a great job orchestrating the offense. I mean, our offense looked really good the first quarter when he was in
66
there.
points the first half.
Yeah. I have no problem with him being passive if it's in a role where he's setting up others and doing a great job of getting people in position to score, which he was doing in the first quarter. I just don't like in the second half when we just completely go away from that when it was working in the first quarter.
Yep. So he was a -3. So the team played the bench unit outplayed Minnesota's bench unit a little bit better than the Blazers starters. Outplayed Timberwolves starters, but overall plus minuses were pretty even tonight. Gary Trent Jr. 14 points, had 4 of our 6 steals, but was 2 for 7 from the 3-point line, was 3 for 6 inside the arc. He's been in a shooting slump. I think it's something like he's shooting 27% from the 3-point line his last 9 games. After this game, I think he might be below 40% at this point. I don't know, man. I mean, Gary offensively, I feel like hasn't really helped us a ton the past few games. I mean, with him shooting the 3 ball that bad, and he's not much of a slasher, not efficient inside the arc, doesn't get to the line. He only shoots 1.4 free throw attempts in his 31 minutes a game. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm just... Lately, offensively, he's struggled. It's nice that he made up for it. Had 4 steals today, got on the break and got an and 1 layup. So it's nice that he was active defensively, more so than usual. But I don't know if it's the minutes catching up to him. I don't know if it's just, it's probably, I mean, obviously it's just a shooting slump. I just don't know if there's like maybe something that's causing that, or if it's just, the ebbs and flows of the season, but he's definitely struggled lately. I don't know. What do you think is going on with him?
I'm starting to think that maybe he's looking over his shoulder at CJ coming back. Everyone's saying, especially because it kind of lines up with our 4-game losing streak, I think, where he started to shoot bad. So maybe he's just pressing a little bit, trying to show that he earns minutes, or obviously he's a free agent in this offseason and wants to get paid. So I think he's just oh crap, I only have a week left or 2 weeks left at the time to show what I can do. So I think he'll be fine, but like you said, he's got to contribute in other ways, man. It was probably his best defensive game in a little over a month, I'd say. So I guess that's a positive thing, but our overall team defense still wasn't good, despite him playing well on defense. Derrick Jones Jr. having a decent game on defense, and Rocco having his usual game on defense. So just frustrating that we could have 3+ defenders in the starting lineup tonight and still give up 121 points. So it's not translating necessarily to the offense getting good shots or the defense improving its numbers. So something's weird. But once again, I can't necessarily pin it all on Gary because there's lots of players doing it. But obviously, he needs to shoot the ball better. If that's his most useful skill on a team is shooting, he's got to be able to not have these long slumps.
I'm still just very uncomfortable with his restricted free agency this upcoming offseason. I've grown more uncomfortable with that. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to get $20 million a year. I'm saying that it's possible, and whatever contract it's possible that he might get, he's not going to get a max, but whatever possible contract he might get, you have to be willing to match it if you keep him. And I am just very uncomfortable with the prospect of paying him $18 to $20 million. Maybe he gets as low as 15. Even at $15 million, he's slightly over. I don't know if it's tough at $15 million even at this point. Especially with kind of our roster construction. But if we give him $50 million, I'm like, okay, cool. You didn't get 20. That's fine. We keep him. Cool. Happy with it. But I don't know. His contract situation just has me super uncomfortable. I still feel like if you're Portland, you have to quietly shop him at the trade deadline and see what's out there. Not necessarily trade him, just see if you can get really, maybe you can get better value on a trade than the value you get from re-signing him in the offseason. And if that's the case, you might have to pull the trigger on something, It's tough, because you don't want to make a move that makes the team worse this year. Yeah, it's just a tough. They're stuck in a tough spot with his contract and this being a contract year with him. And I don't know. The more I think about it, the more uncomfortable I am with the position they are in regards to him.
Well, this is also the problem, though, because if it would have worked out the way Olshey planned on it, with when he drafted both Simons and Trent in the same draft, when you already have Dame and CJ, and then he says Simons is the most gifted player he's ever drafted or whatever. So if Simons blows up and Trent's, just whatever, then we'd have that same situation. We'd have an extra year to think about it, I guess, because first round picks get 4 years. But this was always going to be the case if one of these guys blows up. So it's the tough thing when you draft. I'm always for drafting the best player available, regardless if you have a good guard. We've seen in Portland's history a lot of times where we draft for need over best player available, and it comes back to be one of the worst decisions in NBA history. But I just feel like, we drafted these guys. They're playing well. I don't know if we necessarily need to get rid of them. If Jody's willing to pay the money for it, I don't think it's that big of a problem. And also, we can trade them at any point, even after they sign their contract. The problem becomes if they play like Alan Crabb did after he signed his contract or whatever, then that's going to be a lot harder to trade him, and then we have to salary dump him or attach assets to get rid of him. But I don't see Trent being that bad. I just don't see him falling off that far to where he would be worthless in a trade. So I always, like you said, shop him, see what you can get. If you can find someone, the problem is he makes the minimum, so you have to attach salary in almost any case to do so.
Be him and Hood.
Yeah, so players around the $10 to $12 million range, there's not a lot of players that are oh, this guy is definitely worth getting him over Hood next year. And then you have to wonder if teams would even make those type of trades. But yeah, so it's just a real tough situation. I 100% agree with what you tweeted out during the game. Whereas if you don't trade him at the deadline, you have to be willing to pay him $20 million. If you are not willing to do that, you cannot not get anything for him and let him walk this offseason.
Yeah, granted, I mean, the one and you might hate this, but the one other possibility that we haven't really mentioned is with restricted free agents. You can, if somebody gives them an offer sheet, Portland could then try and sort out a sign and trade where, maybe they're getting salary from a third team, a player from a third team they want. They're using Gary Trent Jr. They work out a 3-team sign and trade that way. That's kind of happened in the past couple off seasons with D'Angelo Russell kind of. Now that was a straight up Durant for Russell sign and trade, so that was even weirder. But I mean, that is the one thing where if they aren't comfortable paying him $20 million, maybe they could get something back for him in a sign and trade. But I mean, you shouldn't have that as your one of your plans. You got to be comfortable paying him $20 million if you keep him.
Just as a correction, well, first of all, to what you said, if they sign the offer sheet, you can't sign and trade them. Then they're done.
Oh, you can't.
No, you have to work out a sign and trade before they sign with the team. So, a lot of times,
it's very confusing with restricted
and offer or whatever, but. Once they sign the offer sheet, you cannot even talk trades anymore.
Yeah, so the order of events is different. Yeah, so they could plan on giving somebody an offer sheet and try and work out a sign and trade. It could be a team that would be a little bit over the cap, so they can't sign him to the amount unless it is a sign and trade. So yeah, I mean that's kind of a those types of situations aren't likely to happen, but they're possible. So maybe that's something that they could fall back on this offseason if they were uncomfortable with it. But still, it's just like, that's not likely enough. It could be a bad team like Detroit going out with all their cap space and spending on Gary Trent Jr. They have no motive to sign trade for him, So you got to be comfortable paying him $20 million, and I don't know if I am, man. I think the one trade target that makes the most sense, whether you like him or not, is John Collins, just because they're both in similar situations going into restricted free agency. Similar salary wise, John Collins plays the 4. We don't really have a long-term 4 unless Collins is able to be healthy. Like, I don't know. I mean, there's definitely some issues with the John Collins trade that gives me some hesitancy, and you even more than I do. But like, contract-wise, position-wise, age-wise, like, something around that is really the only thing I can think of that makes even some sort of sense off the top of my head.
Yeah, and the other problem is the more Trent struggles, the lower his numbers look and the less trade value you might have. Mm-hmm. But Trevin asked, can't you get the other team to give you something in order not to match? Only if they call you before signing him.
Yes.
Then you could do that. But let me just make this clear. You OGs know that I hate the words sign and trade. I cannot stand when people talk about sign and trades. I mentioned this all last season. Do not listen to people who say, oh, we'll sign and trade Whiteside. That's why we keep him after the deadline. We'll sign and trade him and get like the best player ever, because they're going to want pay Whiteside $30 million and give us whatever we want, the best players in the league, right? Like I told all you guys not
he gets a minimum from Sacramento.
Yeah, I actually got blocked by several people over the summer, or not, I guess it wasn't summer, it was November when the offseason occurred, because they kept telling you guys, oh, we can still sign and trade Whiteside. It's just that this team doesn't want to take on salary. Whiteside signed for the minimum. He had no value in trades. No team wanted to pay him more than the minimum. That was never going to happen. However, in this situation with Gary Trent, it does bring up the possibility for a sign and trade. This is the first time in several years that we have had a player that it might be possible to sign and trade. But for the record, despite what people try to tell you about sign and trades, you are not allowed to call teams and offer Gary Trent to sign with them and trade them back to us. What has to happen is Gary Trent has to basically want to sign with another team. And then, like you said, they have to be willing to give up pieces to get them, because if they're under the salary cap, they could just sign him and be like, well, screw you. So that's when the only thing that's different about that is, since he's restricted, we can match. So if they're worried we're going to match, if they offered him like $20 million, they could call us and say, hey, if we give you X, Y, and Z, will you be willing to, and then you negotiate a trade. And then you don't match, you agree not to match once they sign the offer.
There's a lot that goes into it, which is why it's not likely and why it shouldn't be like their plan.
Right.
It
should not be the plan, absolutely.
Yeah, because, I mean, come free agency, you got prepared. Okay, he's going to get a $20 million offer sheet. At that point, you can't work out a sign and trade. And it's either match the $20 million offer sheet or you let him walk for nothing. If you're not comfortable matching that $20 million offer sheet and you let him walk for nothing, that's the worst case scenario. You should have traded him at the deadline. So that's where it comes into play with him going up to this deadline. It's a guy to watch out for, man. I mean, okay, Sam brought up DeRozan. DeRozan makes $27 million. We'd have to trade out a little bit more than that to stay out of the tax, because we'd likely be trading 4 players for 1 or whatever. So who are you trading out to get DeRozan, Sam?
And we'd have to include picks, most likely.
It'd have to include Rodney Hood. It'd have to include Derek Jones Jr., Gary Trent Jr., and then Kanter, and that's still not enough to get done. So then it'd also have to include Collins, and that is about $32 million in salary, 5 for 1. And then you have to fill all those roster spots, all for a guy who is not a good defender whatsoever, makes our defense worse, replacing Derek Jones Jr. with him in the starting lineup, and DeRozan can't play off the ball, so our offense probably becomes worse because he's worse at playing off the ball than Derrick Jones Jr. is, and he's very redundant with Dame and CJ, so he doesn't help our team whatsoever. We lose our depth. We take a step back defensively. Like, DeRozan is a very bad option. I don't even know if I would want DeRozan for free because his fit on this team is absolutely terrible. It's the worst like star caliber player option for this team. I would rather have Chris Paul as a third guard than DeMar DeRozan as our starting three.
I mean, honestly, Chris Paul would be great for us.
I mean, true. I don't know. Think of any star. I'd rather have them. You know what I mean? Like DeMar DeRozan. I mean, the dude made a three this year yet?
Yeah. His defense has been because people think he's bigger than CJ, so he's a better defender. But throughout their careers, they've been roughly the same in terms of defensive metrics and stuff like that.
Yes. So I mean, if we want to be last in the league in defense, he's an option, but he's not actually an option because we'd have to trade out 5 players for him. So anybody making $27 million, like in that range contract wise, not really an option. Anybody making anyone making around $20 million,
it's tough.
Or like $20 to $23 million.
Harrison Barnes is the perfect example.
Like if you want Harrison Barnes, you got to trade Derrick Jones Jr. and Rodney Hood for him, and then another piece because like Hood, Kanter, and Collins only equals $20 million. Harrison Barnes making $22 million, and then you'd have to replace 2 of those roster spots, so that's another like $3 billion that you have to tack on. So they would basically gain $5 million in salary from trading 3 guys making $20 million for 1 guy making $22 million. Because they'd have to replace those 2 roster spots, which would make it about $25 million. So that is the situation they're in. Harrison Barnes isn't really an option unless you trade Derrick Jones Jr., which I don't want to trade Derrick Jones Jr., believe it or not.
Yeah.
So Melo off the bench. Let's talk about Melo just to give Block Boy his fix. 24 points.
I don't think he's in here anymore.
5 assists. We took too long. Oh, well. 2 steals,
no, we didn't
1
take
block.
Too long. He was mad about some.
No, of course. He commented a minute ago. Yeah.
Oh, he's back. Okay.
He's been here. Eric's sleeping on you, man. I don't know. You've been here.
No, he said he was leaving after he got put in timeout.
Oh, yeah. No. Well, we're not even talking about Melo and some completely ridiculous, and every single talking point I speak on, he always is trying to give me crap for Melo. Yeah, that's a 5-minute little break for the comments on that. But now it's the time to talk about Melo. Melo scores 24 points tonight. He has 5 assists, had 2 steals, a block, 2 rebounds. 7 for 12 from the field, 2 for 4 from the three-point line. He was 5 for 8 inside the arc. Efficient night from him from all areas of the floor. He was also 8 for 8 from the free throw line. Not only did he get to the free throw line a lot, he knocked down all 8 of his free throws. Honestly, this is a pretty... this might be his best game of the season. Honestly, just like the complete package. Just the efficiency getting to the free throw line. Some of the passes he made. That pass to Derrick Jones Jr. at the end there was a perfect play, and it's crazy that people think we have to have Aaron Gordon in order to make that pass. You know what I mean? Made some defensive plays as well. Very well-rounded game from Carmelo tonight.
Yeah, and so all 8 of his free throws came in the first half. So despite being 1 and 4, I think he was 1 for 4 in the first half, he got to the line those 8 times, and he was just toying with people and trying to draw fouls. And I love when he plays like that. He's honestly, if he increased his free throw rate closer to his career like prime numbers where he would draw a lot of fouls, he might be our most efficient player if he got to the line more often, which is crazy to even think about considering how inefficient at times he has been since coming here. But I just really liked it. And also, I just want to make this point. I 100% believe this. I've been saying it all year. If our coaching staff was emphasizing this team to move the ball and had plays designed where Melo was a passer versus being a just, we're in the second unit, let's just go post up Melo, take a shot. if we had actual plays where from his post-ups, we actually ran some action and Melo knew where the players were supposed to go, what options he had out of the post to pass, I think he would average close to these 5 assists per game. I think when Dame gets double teamed, we could put him at the top of the key and he could be the answer to a lot of our problems with attacking a 4-on-3 situation. I believe he is skilled enough to do that. And the prime example was the play tonight that we ran that had me I've never been more thrilled to see a play in my life watching the Blazers play. It was beautiful, and it just shows everything that I believe Melo is capable of if you teach him to do that, because he was looking to pass the entire time despite getting good position in the post.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I'm going to pump the brakes on almost 5 assists per game. That's a little high, but I agree with everything you're saying.
I'm not saying necessarily become a great assist guy, but the amount of times Dame gets doubled, if we were using Melo in this position to set up the offense, I just think I know it's kind of joking about point guard Melo, but even not bringing the ball up or whatever, he can make plays and do. Yeah, he could pass the ball, and it's just frustrating that we need to trade for Aaron Gordon to get someone like that when we have a guy like that could be similar to that, and is one of the greatest all time players. He gets all this gravity towards him. There is things we can do with him to greatly improve our ball movement. And it's weird saying Melo is the guy to do that, but this guy, I guarantee you, if you told him, okay, you're going to get the ball in the post, but watch Little, he's going to get a back pick on this play and he might be open. If not, someone's going to curl around this and he'll be a shooter open. Melo will be patiently wait to see if those guys are open. If they're not, and then shoot the ball if he has to. But I just think we just don't use him right, and I believe his whole career, he's played on teams like the Knicks where he has to just basically score 30 points a game, and they don't have a lot of options.
Well, that was going to be my point. I think he's a more willing passer at this point in his career than he was when he averaged 3 assists a game for the Knicks. Mm-hmm. Because he was the scorer and he scored the ball at such a high level that it was almost why would I pass the ball? I'm gonna get a shot off. Whereas now he realized, okay, I'm not the same guy I was when I was 28, 29 in my prime. I could still get hot and score a lot, but I'm obviously, there's some talented scorers on this team as well, and I think he's a more willing passer because of that, and he's a smart offensive player. He's always been in my opinion, a smart offensive player. He used to be a guy that was so talented at scoring the ball. He took a lot of shots. So I think, a more willing passer, smart offensive player. I mean, I feel not many people make that pass he did to Derrick Jones Jr. as well as he did. Because he saw that before the ball got to him. A lot of people might catch the ball, scan for a second, realize Derrick Jones Jr. is open, then try and zip the ball down to him, and at that point it might be tipped because they needed that time to scan. Whereas Melo knew immediately when he was catching the ball. He was basically catching the ball and already throwing it in one motion. So plays like that, it showcases kind of what you're speaking to. So I mean, it's not going to happen with the way this team is coached, so I'm not getting my hopes up or anything, but I'm glad that he can make the right play when it presents itself to him. And sometimes sometimes he makes mistakes.
He's going to shoot it, so
and sometimes he forces shots where maybe he should have passed. But overall, for the most part, I think he can make the right play and he can make the right pass, even if it's a pass you wouldn't necessarily expect of him, which you wouldn't expect him to be able to make that pass to Derrick Jones Jr. if you just are on the outside looking in. But that was a dime. 5 assists tonight. It was an impressive passing performance from him.
And honestly, if the game plan wasn't just to have Melo go crazy and hit a bunch of shots, we probably would have lost this game tonight. So it's good that he still can do that, because we absolutely needed every point he made in the second half of this game. And congrats on moving up to 11th in scoring all time. That's really cool. He's only, I think, about 40 some points away from moving into the top 10, so that's cool as well.
Yep, should see him get there very shortly.
You said you didn't pay attention very attentively in the first half. Did you see the play I'm talking about?
Which play?
The one
I might have, but I don't know. I haven't seen your tweet yet, so
yeah.
But I mean, like, brackets get released tomorrow. I have a bracket pool, by the way. Let me just plug that right now. It's a $20 buy-in. And I tweeted it out. And if you want to join that, I'll post the link. It is a $20 buy-in, though, so you will be removed if you don't get the buy-in by the first round. That's when that would be due. And we'll do payouts. If there's like 20 or 30 people, we'll do 3 payouts. If there's more than 30, we'll do 4. That's kind of the plan. So if you want to participate, let me find that link. Let's see here. Cool. Bang. There. It's too long for chat, so I will tweet it out again right now. I will tweet it. Let's talk about Nas. If you want to join, just go check my latest tweet right now. Nas tonight, what'd you think of him, Eric?
First half was great. He was kind of doing some weird thing on his 3-point shots that I didn't like, but the one time he followed his shot and got a dunk out of it. He had a great drive. We don't have players that can create yet. I saw Nas catch a ball on the perimeter, being guarded, pump faked, went right around him, and then dunked on 4 people. So, I think we have some playmakers that can do some things on this team. And I was really happy. I have to give Stotts credit. It's sad that I have to give him credit for something so simple, but he let Little stay in at the beginning of the second quarter.
No, you don't have to give him credit for leaving Nassir Little in for a couple extra minutes when he's playing well. That's common sense. I will not give Terry Stotts credit for common sense decisions that everybody sees is the right decision. But you can give him praise. I'm just saying I will not give him praise for common sense decisions.
I know. I was half joking, but I was happy that Stotts actually gave him minutes.
Yes.
And let him play 11 straight minutes when usually the plan is to put him in with like 5 minutes left in the first and then take him out when the second unit comes in. I was happy he got a chance, and he had some nice offensive plays, had a nice block shot as well. He really gets up there on those rebounds too. If he could become a little smarter on how he goes after rebounds, I think he can be a really good wing rebounder as well. I want Nas to get more minutes. I think he should be playing all of Hood's minutes right now. And I'm waiting for this guy to just get a chance to break out. And I don't understand why he's being so limited up until this point, maybe, especially coming off like he'll have games where he hits a 3 and is seemingly doing good things, and then he just gets taken out and doesn't play anymore. So I'm glad he actually got a chance to play this game.
Yep, agreed. There's really nobody else I want to talk about from this game. What about you? Maybe Derrick Jones Jr. We talked about Trent already.
Yeah.
Derrick Jones Jr. started off very well in the first quarter. 4 for 8 from the field, 1 for 3 from the 3-point line. He's been nice. He's been serviceable. 11 points in his 21 minutes. Had a couple nice drives and finishes around the rim. I still really like his finishing ability around the rim. He's able to kind of contort, at times and finish. Come on. He's one of those guys that you don't think would be like creative with some of his finishes. He's just an athletic wing without many ball skills. So I think, that's something that surprised me this year is how he's able to kind of contort or maybe sidestep defenders at times and finish around the rim.
Yeah, well, he was a really good finisher last year, right, percentage-wise?
Yeah. Yeah, and he did that last year.
It was just, this year, but,
based on the outside looking in, you wouldn't really expect that, and coming in, I didn't really expect that, so that's been a pleasant surprise of him.
This kind of applies to a bunch of players, Ant and Derrick Jones, but here we are, 2 games after the All-Star break, and I don't think we've gotten Ant a shot anywhere close to the basket, and Derrick Jones Jr. had that one backdoor cut with a nice feed from Rocco just because the defense was completely overplaying him. It wasn't a design play or anything. And we're just doing nothing to get these guys out on transition or cuts to the basket or just something. Derrick Jones Jr., all his nice finishes, I think, were mostly off of plays where he had to take 2 or 3 dribbles just to get to the rim. So I just wish we would run some sort of offense that's designed to get these high flyers some momentum type dunks.
I mean, this is something I want to see, especially with Nurkic back. I think they could do it now, but especially once they have Nurkic back. Let me bring up the good old clipboard for you guys. I mean, when teams trap Dame, and they ran pick and roll with Derrick Jones Jr. and they finished this as a roll man, but, especially in the playoffs, it's like if you got Derrick Jones Jr. out here and the game plan is just to trap Dame, just have something like this, where, let's see here, let's just put defenders on these guys. Where you have Derrick Jones Jr. come set the screen right here. Okay? If they go up and trap, you have Nurkic as kind of the outlet option to relieve pressure. And then if they're both up trapping on Dame and Derrick Jones Jr. is rolling, you have a lob pass over the top. You just change the angle, It's a situation where, like, if Dame's coming off the screen and he's getting trapped and Jones is rolling, he might not have the ability to get Jones the ball. And also Jones has to completely turn around. He can't catch it on the run easily from this angle, right? So this trap is effective if you just try and feed it like that, But if you have an outlet option like a Yusuf Nurkic that you can quickly get the ball to once they spring the trap while Jones is rolling out, that's just a touch pass over the top for a dunk, And if this center completely sags, then, you can let Nurkic kind of drive. I mean, he's good enough in space as a dribbling wise to be able to attack from here if there's nobody around him and get downhill. And then the center is going to have to decide to pick him up, and that's a lob, or not pick him up, and then maybe Nurkic can get to the rim, or if there's help from here, it's a kick out to CJ. If that guy rotates, it's a, extra pass to Rocco in the corner, wide open. It's just basic offense, but that's something I would like to see to kind of, punish teams for trapping Dame, utilizing Nurkic's passing ability, and Derrick Jones Jr.'s ability as a lob threat, which would be open if they trap.
Yep. And for Ants, I mean, when you're a guard and you're not necessarily playing in the corners, which Ant doesn't really do much, there's all kinds of things you could design to get him slicing down the middle of the key for a dunk attempt. But
yeah. So, can be creative in numerous other ways. That's just an example of one. I'd like to see when Nurkic is back because we know he can make that pass. And the thing is, most centers won't completely leave Nurkic, so they won't be down there to help on Derrick Jones Jr. And if they do, that's where it's like I continue to hope Nurkic gets better at the three-point shot so that he's enough of a threat where you can't just leave him wide open. And it'll make you pay if that center just completely leaves him. But yeah, either way, it's you could maybe have that outlet pass with Nurkic around the free throw line too, if that angle is workable, and then he's even more of a threat as a shooter and as a slasher and can still throw the lob over the top to a Derrick Jones Jr. So, what I'm worried is they'll just run pick and roll with Nurkic and the center will trap and then Nurkic will roll and Dame will have an angle to him and there won't be a good outlet to relieve pressure and then we're screwed because that's kind of what we've seen all season. So.
Yeah, because Nurk's better if he's being a playmaker out of those short rolls versus I mean, he can finish sometimes, but Kanter is a better finisher, especially this year, than he is on those. So I kind of like, once again, designing it as a play for him to pass versus just, okay, Nurk, you need to adjust to whatever they do on this play or whatever, because that's what he said about him in the playoffs. So it's just, I wish we would emphasize and make that a priority. Like, hey, you're going to get the ball here. It's fine. If you have a shot, like, go ahead and take it or drive to the basket if you have an open lane. But watch for Derrick Jones Jr. on this roll here. He'll be open if they double Dame. So I just want them to emphasize and make that their top priority on offense is that, hey, we do have great scorers that can do things, and that's fine. There's plenty of time to have that happen. Just look for these other things first and then make a play if you can't get him.
Yep. So let's go. This stream is going to be a little bit shorter since we got the same team tomorrow. Let's go around the NBA real quick, look at some scores and whatnot. Let's make sure ESPN doesn't play anything. That's college basketball scores.
First, Beavs up 5 with 8.5 minutes left.
Yeah, I kind of want to catch the end of that game.
8 minutes.
to be honest.
Come on, Beefs.
Yeah, your Beavs might play their way into the tournament.
Was not
Score-wise,
expecting that.
yeah, neither was I. Score-wise, Blazers beat the Timberwolves 125-121. Of course, it's on your screen, and that's what we've been covering. The Hawks beat the Kings 121-106. Clint Capella has been phenomenal this season. He has 24 points, 14 rebounds for the Hawks. De'Aaron Fox has 32, 7, and 6 in the loss for the Kings, who now fall to 15 and 23. The Wizards lose to the Bucks, despite a 40-point triple-double from Westbrook. What were you gonna say?
Before you move on from the Atlanta game,
let's talk about it.
I want to point one thing out. Atlanta changes their coach midseason. They're 4-0 since. So one thing to watch for. They're not obviously not going to win out or anything.
Who is their coach now?
Nate McMillan.
Is it? How did I miss that?
I don't know.
Huh.
Yeah, he was an assistant. So
okay.
So yeah, just for all those people, I know they haven't been around here lately, but for the people who say it's an absolute tank job if you fire your coach midseason, you can never win a game again. Just look and see what they're doing once they moved on from their coach.
Yep. Facts. Triple-double from Westbrook, and they lose. That's the Washington Wizards. Westbrook has 42 points, 10 rebounds, 12 assists, but they can't take care of the Bucks, who were led by their own triple-double from Giannis, who had 33 points, 11 rebounds, 11 assists. The Bucks moved to 24 and 14. The Wizards fall to 14 and 23. The Hornets beat the Raptors 114 to 104. They were up like 25-4 to start this game. The Raptors couldn't claw their way back. LaMelo has 23 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists for the Hornets in their win. The Hornets moved to 19 and 18. They're a game above 500. The Raptors fall to 17 and 21. That Eastern Conference playoff picture is just kind of shocking to look at it in the second half of the season and see the Hornets ahead of the Raptors, and the Bulls, I think, are ahead of them too at this point. It's been a rough season for Toronto and a fun season for Charlotte. The Nets beat the Pistons by a score of 100-95. They barely take care of business. They were led by another triple-double. Harden had 24 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. As the Nets moved to 26 and 13, Mason Plumlee had 11 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Jeremy Grant had 22 points. Saddiq Bey struggled from the three-point line. Your guy. I gotta click on this box score and always see how Saddiq Bey is doing. Yeah, normally I just read off the top performers now at this point, but I thought it was kind of weird that stat line from Plumlee made him the top performer for Detroit. They almost pulled off the upset, though, but they fall short by 5. The Knicks beat the Thunder 119-97. Julius Randle had, guess what? Another triple-double. 26 points, 12 rebounds, 12 assists for them. The Thunder were led by 16 from Al Horford. The Thunder fall to 16 and 22. The Knicks are also, just like the Hornets, a game above 500 at 20 and 19. Them and Charlotte have been probably the two biggest surprises so far this season. There are 2 games that are still going on right now, but they look to be decided. One is the Pacers leading the Phoenix Suns 118-107. The Valley Podcast was in here a little bit ago. It looks like the Suns, after getting a huge win against the Blazers, are going to fall to a Pacers team that was struggling going into tonight. There's only 30 seconds left in this one. The Pacers up 11. They are being led by, guess what? Another triple-double. Domantas Sabonis has 22 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists.
That's Reese. How'd you do on your bet tonight? I saw you place a bet. It was wait, how many boards did Kanter have?
11.
I think he lost that one.
Dang, Reese.
It was Cat over 23.5 points, which is a lock pretty much against our defense. And Sabonis over like 4 or 5 assists or something like that. And then there was one other one. How did Karis LeVert do? He played in his first game.
13 points, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, 5 for 14 from the field, over 4 from 3. So not that impactful.
I mean, they got the win. That's nice to have a
they're
body
shooting,
back.
they're shooting 46% from 3 and 53% from the field. Indiana is. Domantas Sabonis 9 for 13, 1 for 2 from 3. Domantas Sabonis also has 4 steals with that 22 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists. So impressive game from him. Miles Turner is 7 for 8, including 2 for 2 from the three-point line. Malcolm Brogdon is 8 for 16 and 4 for 6 from the three-point line. Justin Holiday is only 3 for 12. He's struggling to shoot the ball, but Doug McDermott has 20 22 off the bench, 9 for 13, 2 for 4 from 3. Yeah, I mean, just a rough game for the Suns. Good for the Blazers. Of course, they're able to gain a game on the Suns tonight. The other game going on right now is between two Western Conference playoff teams. It's Dallas and Denver. There's 3 minutes left in that game, and Dallas has a 16-point lead, 111-95. Kristaps Porzingis has 22 points for them. Is Luka even playing in this one? Yeah, Luka's playing. I know he was out their previous game, I think. Maybe that was before the All-Star break. I don't remember. But yeah, Porzingis having a big game for them. Josh Richardson has 20 for them. The Nuggets only have 95 on the board against a pretty mediocre Dallas defense. I don't know what they ranked this year, but they were last year and didn't really change much up. So I assume they're still pretty mediocre. If anybody has that stat, Reese, let me know.
What was it? What's that?
Dallas's defensive ranking, I'm curious about. Because Denver's really struggling to score the ball in this one against, it's a little bit surprising given how porous Dallas's defense was last year. I mean, I think they're around average this year, but I don't know.
Well, Dallas did trade for Jay Rich, who's
but see, they had Jay Rich, and they go from like worst to average. We had Robert Covington, and we don't. Right. So
they're 24th this year.
Okay, they're still bad. They're still bad. Yeah. So Denver only scored 95 with 3 minutes left in the fourth. Is
it's funny? Surprising. They were 18th last year.
Were they? I thought they were last.
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm positive.
Huh. They have had a very hard schedule, so that could be part of the reason. Whereas we've had an easy one, so we don't have that excuse. Jokic has 26 points, 11 assists, 9 rebounds. We'll see if he can get another triple-double. There's been a ton of triple-doubles tonight. But yeah, that's the NBA action. The Nuggets are going to lose, which means the Blazers will have sole possession of 5th place. They will be 2 games behind the Clippers for 4th, 2.5 games behind the Lakers for 3rd, and 3 games behind the Suns for 2nd. Problem is Suns have the tiebreaker because they beat us both times. So, got to take care of those LA games if you want home court advantage at this point, most likely.
Yep. I really want you to watch that play.
I will after this stream. We're probably going to wrap things up there. I think, I'll let Eric catch the end of this Beavers game. I kind of want to watch it too. We got, if you want to join that bracket pool, check my latest tweet. It is a $20 buy-in. Remember that. Other than that, we'll be live tomorrow with the same game, and hopefully, we'll have a little bit more of a recap tomorrow. We'll go a little bit longer. We'll discuss the players a little bit more in depth, but we got, the same team twice in a row, and then the same team twice in a row, and then the same team twice in a row. So these post-game streams might be a little bit shorter just because the games itself are redundant. With the way the Blazers play, sometimes our analysis can get a little redundant, but now it's like the games are redundant too. So I'm just going to enjoy the end of this.
We lose an hour tonight too.
Yeah, I'm down for that. I'm down for it getting dark later. But yeah, so I might do a stream tomorrow on Blazers Uprise Live during the Selection Sunday show, just reacting to what they pick. I don't know. I'll tweet out if I do that. But that would be over on Blazers Uprise Live, so go subscribe. We're close to 1,000. We've been trying to grind our way there. Follow us on Twitter at ToryJonesYT for me, at Hoopstalk for Eric, at Blazers Uprise YT for the channel. Thank you to all my channel members and for everybody who donated tonight and for all you for tuning in. With that, that's a wrap for this post-game show. Anything you want to end off with?
No, I just want to say Paul Burton saying Whiteside led the league in blocks and our biggest weakness is rim protection. Actually, we're still terrible on defense with Whiteside's great rim protection last year. So, I don't see that at all. He thinks we should have re-signed Whiteside, but Whiteside's he's been hurt this year too at times too. So you're talking about injuries. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely not losing Hassan Whiteside. Hopefully Nurkic can get back in shape and can provide us some rim protection. We can see how this defense looks. But it seems like our struggles transcend personnel. Anyway, we'll leave a fact there at the end. That's a good argument that I agree with. We will see you guys tomorrow Same time, right? This is a 5 p.m. game tomorrow as well.
I hope so.
I think it is. I wish it was later.
Check it. Yep, 5.
Yeah, so same time tomorrow, same game. We'll catch you guys then. Hope you guys have a good rest of your Saturday night. With that, that's a wrap. We'll catch you guys later. As always, peace out. Go Blazers.